Man, talk about an overlooked game. Unit 13 took me by complete surprise. It's one of those games I usually hear people talk about in the comments, and occasionally I get asked to review it. From what I've heard, it seems like one of those games that not too many people have played. Being an early release on the PlayStation Vita, it seems like a game only diehard fans would know about. Either that or I really need to play more games. Being the first third-person shooter released on the PlayStation Vita and coming from a veteran developer, expectations were high for Unit 13. The game was released on March 6, 2012, and within the same month, the developing studio was shut down. Not a good sign for the game, to say the least. Reactions were generally mixed. It was praised for its gameplay, but criticized for its uneven AI and bland level design. I didn't get my PS Vita until a year later, so unfortunately, I wasn't around to experience the entire thing unfold. But I'm here now, and I'm gonna give Unit 13 the review it deserves. Visually, this is one of the best looking games on the PlayStation Vita. Character models and environmental detail are all top notch, but it's the little things that make the game stand out. Dirt and debris can be seen flying in the air as you traverse through a level. The glass window you're hiding underneath shatters from oncoming bullets, and fire from a smokestack can be seen in the distance. They don't mean much by themselves, but collectively they all come together to help create a sense of atmosphere that so few games give off today. There's a limited number of locales to visit, but each one so big and expansive, you normally won't get to see everything your first time around. Enemy death animations are also satisfying to watch, and no matter how many times it happens, I never get tired of pulling off a headshot. There's a weird sense of realism in the way they fall that's almost scary. As a whole, everything looks great. The colors might not be as bright and cheery as your typical Vita game, but do know the detail is there. Control-wise, Unit 13 handles very well. Considering how small the analog sticks are on the Vita, I found it quite easy to line up my headshots. The aim has sort of a snap-on mechanic that instantly locks onto your target. It's almost as if the game can anticipate where you want to shoot the enemy. Touch controls are also incorporated quite well. Sliding the back of the touchpad will change shoulders for aiming, while the front touch can be used for throwing grenades, disarming mines, or hopping over ledges, which I really think should have been mapped to a face button instead, but luckily, there's not a lot of ledges to hop over in this game, so I guess it works out. Hiding behind cover works for the most part, but sometimes you might find yourself unable to peek out of a corner because you weren't close enough to the edge. It'll take a while to get used to before you get a feel for how the cover system works. It's not difficult, but at the same time, it isn't perfect. My biggest complaint would have to be the camera. It's way too close to the back of your character. They need to pull that thing a little bit further back. Again, this is something that's gonna take some time to get used to. Also, I feel like there should be a crouch button, don't you think? For a game where you're constantly firing a weapon, the sound design never gets old. Regardless of whatever you're carrying, there's a certain degree of authenticity behind every shot. The heavier weapons are loud and intimidating, while silencers are... silent and deadly? The music isn't anything special, but it gets the job done, and most importantly, it isn't annoying. I like the fact that it doesn't always play in the background, but rather only kicking in during key moments during the mission. Unit 13 is a third-person shooter developed by Zipper Interactive. It uses a cover system which I'm sure many of you will recognize. Find a wall or ledge and lean up against it. I couldn't help but be reminded of Uncharted as I played this game. The only difference here is that lining up headshots just felt more accurate and precise. Unfortunately, unlike Uncharted, there is no story mode. Each mission starts off with a little backstory, but that's pretty much it. I think it would have added a lot more to the game if there was some sort of centralized story that connected them all together. The entire game allows you to pick and choose your missions. You're given a few at first, with more opening up as you complete each one. I think there's 36 missions total. They all play out pretty much the same. Objectives can range from collecting data, rescuing hostages, disarming bombs, neutralizing targets, and destroying enemy equipment. The only difference is the kind of restriction placed on you during one of these missions. For example, one mission may be covert, where you gotta get in and out before being spotted, or the dreaded deadline missions, where you're given a certain amount of time to get all objectives completed. My favorite would have to be either direct action or elite missions. The objectives are no different than what I mentioned earlier. It's just that these mission types are a lot more forgiving. They don't end in a mission fail if I'm spotted, and they have enough checkpoints so I don't have to start all the way from the beginning if I die. Which brings me to my first and probably my only complaint with the game: the horrible checkpoint system. Certain missions require that you start all the way from the very beginning, which isn't so bad if the level is short, but sometimes they can run pretty long, and having to do the whole thing over can get pretty pretty annoying. Also, why is the hit radius on the grenades so wide? Can someone answer that for me? I managed to get a hold of the online pass, which still is up on the PSN store, but unfortunately I wasn't able to find anyone else playing, so you might want to think twice before trying to go online. So what's so great about this game? It sounds pretty much like any other third-person shooter that's come out before it. Well, I'm not quite sure exactly, but I'll try to explain it as best I can. You see, there's this feeling of satisfaction you get when you do really well in a video game. Either scoring a point in sports or decapitating your opponent in a fighting game. There's a level of satisfaction you get when you accomplish these things. Unit 13 is nothing but that. Every time I pull off a headshot or take 2 guards out with a single explosive, I get that feeling. And it's not every once in a while, it's almost constantly. This is going to sound so messed up, but shooting a guard in the back of the head never gets old. Believe it or not, I have enough footage where I can actually make a montage of it. The game doesn't break any new ground, nor is it trying to. It's just constant fun gameplay with a few tiny hiccups here and there. If you're not into the whole shooter type games, you definitely need to give this one a chance. I don't normally play these kind of games, but I'm glad I did because I had a blast. The controls are a snap to get a hang of, the objectives are varied, and the gunplay is pure fun. Unit 13 for the PlayStation Vita comes all together now. Highly recommended. Now, if you enjoyed this video, do check out my other reviews. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Do that, and you'll help me buy more games to talk about. Later.